tax and business consultant.
I'm John Barton, small business owner. Remember the tortoise and the hare? Slow and steady wins the race.
We start to help people start small businesses, providing information and resources to small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Build a solid foundation and forge your dreams.
Hey, welcome to Turtlesmith Live. My name's Scott Hess. I am a tax and business consultant. With me always is
John Barton. I am a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I guess we could call me that right now, right?
I mean, you've started a handful of businesses. So I think that, I don't know when the term serial comes in. Like, you know, how many people do you have to kill before you're a serial killer? How many businesses do you have to start before you're a serial entrepreneur? But you're towing the line anyway.
That reminds me that I am missing a t-shirt.
Oh, did I remind you?
Yeah, because I have a t-shirt that says serial killer.
Oh, okay.
With a bowl of cereal.
No, there you go.
But anyway.
Well, we had this whole great episode planned to kind of talk a little shit on Governor Stitt's comment about repealing the medical marijuana in Oklahoma. But we just found out, I think yesterday or the day before, the Senate and the state House of Representatives had basically just said that is not happening. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's impossible. And we were going to talk all about the reasons of why it would be impossible and how crazy it would be. And they commented the exact same thing. I mean, it spits in the face of all the voters who voted it in. There's tons of businesses already established with millions of dollars invested. It makes $445 million in revenue a year, which is, $80 million in tax revenue. And it employs like 40,000 people.
Wasn't this just like some comment from him that just kind of came out of left field too that surprised everyone? It wasn't like he was like talking about it.
I think he was just pulling the Trump move where he was just start spitballing things and just saying them out loud, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
He's a lame duck at this point anyway, right? He's out in like 6 months, right?
Yeah, so I don't know if he was trying to make some waves before he left office or what was happening, but he was really excited about it. And to be fair, we talk about this way further in our podcast, which will be out next week. So definitely check that out if you're interested. But to be fair, there are a lot of people in Oklahoma who are kind of sick of the cannabis industry. They think it's oversaturated. There's too many billboards, too many dispensaries. And, part of me a little bit agrees. Like on my drive home here, it's only a few miles and there's like 6 dispensaries in a 3-mile stretch. That's too many dispensaries. It's getting a little out of hand.
It is, but like I said before, a lot of them are really creative names, so it's entertaining.
It is. Yeah, I passed a couple, How High and Atomic Lotus and Mango and
the Great Barrier Reef.
Yeah, Great Barrier Reef. I actually know the guy who owns that. He's a pretty good guy. He's from Australia.
So really?
Yeah, that's why they named it that.
How cool is that?
Yeah, you go in there and get your weed with a little Australian accent, a little Australian flair.
Yeah, so, that's great.
Shout out to those guys.
Or Tim's High Society.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Yeah.
What a great name that is.
All good names, all little puns.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it on the podcast too about I was thinking about becoming the chronic accountant. I got the domain name and everything. That was going to be my shtick in 2020, but I smartly decided that I think that would pigeonhole me too much. I'd only have cannabis clients. I wouldn't have anybody else, so probably a good idea. I don't know. Would you have stopped by? This was before we knew each other. Would you have stopped at the chronic accountant?
Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah.
Probably not.
Well, it's a good thing I didn't do it then. We wouldn't have been in business together. But what are your overall thoughts? Reform, definitely not repeal, right? That's crazy.
Not repeal, no. And I honestly am not sure how much reform is needed. I know that that throughout all of our conversations, over the last couple of years, there's been some attempts at reform. There's been some, some of it is kind of heavy-handed.
Well, the moratorium was a bad
burdensome, on the industry. I think, as I said before, that maybe, the big marijuana bust that they just had, where the Operation Blunt Force.
Yeah, what a great name.
where they
names.
where they said they removed $1 billion worth of street value weed off the market or whatever. I don't know if that's what they said, but I said the operation was like $1 billion.
$1.5 billion operation.
Oh, it's 1.5 billion.
That's what I had read, and I have no idea how they calculate that. I mean, what is it? Just,
street value, I mean, it's like
but street value over at the time of the bust, or like the operation was worth 1.5 billion. Like, who the hell knows?
So here's the thing, right? If I lose all my inventory, right, I don't get to claim the street value of it.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
I don't get to claim the retail value of it.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. But when they talk about drug busts, it is always the street value.
Yeah. It's always the street value, and it's always the highest street value too.
Right. Yeah. Top of the line stuff.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. I mean, even that much is like, that's just so much cannabis. Like, I can't imagine that's what they were talking about. I'm sure they were adding in like the cost of the operations and the investment and the infrastructure, and they just estimated it to be that big.
Well, Jesus, if you have a $1.5 billion operation, that must employ a lot of people, or there must be a lot of money circulating there.
A lot of money. Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? I wonder who their accountant is.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so yeah, so basically the legislature shut him down, which is pretty interesting in a state that has a supermajority of Republican. To go and shut their own governor down.
That's true. Yeah, they just said, no, this is not happening. So anyway, we had a whole episode planned, but it just kind of we got the rug pulled out from underneath us on this one. So not too much excitement.
In a good way, though, because we really don't want to see the disruption of this industry.
No. Yeah. I mean, 100%.
We're okay with that.
But rightfully, and we talk again a lot about this on the podcast that'll be out next week, but we do talk a little bit about the reform. I think there does need to be some kind of reform. Now, I'm kind of a capitalist in the sense that I think that there shouldn't be a moratorium on licenses. As many people that want to open dispensaries and fail can and should be able to, the cream will kind of rise to the top, and that's free market society. But I do think that there needs to be some kind of reform on the testing, the transparency of what we're buying, what's in our products, all that stuff. And you commented on that a lot. There's just so much, even at the grocery store, that's just, who knows what the hell's in it.
I think it's like this. There's a lot of people that just literally prey on the ignorance of the consumer base. Yeah. And so when you end up with an oversaturated industry, right? On one hand, you want to say, okay, the competition should force products to get better and cheaper, right? But it doesn't always work that way. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they just get worse and cheaper. Yeah. But there is an awful lot of marketing out there of what I would call fraudulent claims, where they're just preying on the fact that people don't know any better, and they claim that their stuff is good and they claim their stuff is great.
Yeah. Do you think though it's ignorance from the individual? I think it's more just apathy. Like, people are just like, I'm not going through everything I pick up in the grocery store and looking at all of the ingredients and the nutritional value.
It's overwhelming.
It's just too much.
It's an information overload.
And then I don't know what all is in there.
Information overload.
Yeah, so I just want to know when I go to a spot and pick something up that it's kind of what I wanted. Hopefully it's good and it's not, I'm not getting bait and switched, which I think is going to happen. Happens a lot with this cannabis.
Or maybe
space.
You don't want to find out, like 3 years later that whatever they were using that was legal at the time was actually poisoning you.
But I think that just happens in general, right? I mean, throughout history, we find stuff and it comes out. People use it for a long time, and then all of a sudden we find out it's terrible for you. Like everybody was real against butter for a long time, and then they had a whole campaign about sugar, but it's all corporations trying to make money who are just shutting crap down. So they just do all these propaganda.
Yeah, there's a viral video that came out like years ago. This was like maybe 10 years ago or so. I've recently seen it resurface, but it's like this guy is about to eat some eggs. Yeah. And somebody pops in from the future and goes, "Don't eat that. Those are bad for you. High cholesterol," right? Right. And they're like, "Oh God," they throw away the eggs, right? Yeah. And then so they're eating some kind of alternative or something, and then the guy pops back in from the future and he goes, "Oh, well, we learned eggs are actually good for you and the artificial stuff is not."
Right.
And it's just, it goes like this in a cycle.
Right. You never know what's going to be good for you.
Yeah.
As we learn more. But see, I think that's why we need to have maybe better restrictions and licensing inspections and stuff like that, particularly in the cannabis industry, before things come on the market. Before grows open, before processors open, it should be more stringent to like look at their operation, how they're doing stuff in order to get them licensed.
And whenever anybody on any side of these issues is found to be dishonest, they need to be severely punished.
Yes,
you know,
I agree.
It can't just be slaps on the wrist for these guys, you know, where they're like, oh well, you know, okay, I got caught, no big deal.
Yeah,
you know, because the thing that bothers me the most is just the perpetual fraud that is foisted upon the public.
No, there's no corruption in politics or
politics, business,
or
industry, everything. I mean, it's just
that's crazy.
It's crazy. Why can't we just have a culture of honesty? You know,
I mean, that's just that's controversial. That's the most controversial statement I've ever heard you make.
You know, why is it not considered a fraud to blatantly lie?
Yeah,
in a commercial setting.
I got an answer for you.
Yeah.
Oh, lay it on us.
There's no infrastructure in order to incentivize honesty. So when you look at the cannabis industry here, one of the things that Scott kind of pointed out earlier with the numbers that we have is how much we overproduce, right? Well, when we talked about this in pre-production, I floated the idea that maybe we put a limit on the number of licenses based upon the number of medical card holders there are in the program.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
And I think, one, you don't even have to kill off any licenses if you already know that you overproduce. For one, overproduction is not a bad thing. Even in some of the recreational states like Oregon, we were usually running at about 20 to 25% overproduction rates. And that's in a recreational state that has no medical card as a barrier to entry. Mm-hmm. But if we are going to be in a state that remains medical, then why don't we take the excess and use that to set ourselves up to be one of the largest cannabis research states?
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fantastic idea.
And so now, if I've got a grower who is an honest grower, but his margins may be a little thin, and he could honestly, his business could suffer harm from, a crop going moldy on him or something like that. Now he has an outlet to then be able to get that somewhere. Maybe he doesn't get all the money he would have gotten, but he doesn't take a total loss.
I mean, it's not a bad idea. Yeah. I think Calvin's got my vote for the new director of the OMMA right here.
2026.
There you go.
Running for it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. Well, that's a good idea for reform. But there certainly has to be some kind of reform in Oklahoma. We can't just repeal it, but something needs to happen.
Yeah, it can't just be this hysteria like people
Reefer madness.
People like Stitt, we opened up a Pandora's box and blah blah blah. Well, you know what? What was the lesson from Pandora's box? Can't close it.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, do we have any questions from the audience? That's part of this live show, is answering questions.
What should you do if your business is in a saturated local market?
Well, that's a good question. Really, it's all about having some type of competitive advantage and differentiating yourself. So if you're already in a saturated market, it sort of depends on how it's saturated. So do you sell the exact same product as your competitor? If that's the case and there can't be any differentiation in the product, you need to either have some kind of differentiation in the customer experience, or you have to be the lowest price.
Yeah, Sam Walton used to say, stack it high and sell it cheap.
Yeah.
There's just that is actually one of the toughest questions, because we always talk about like having a USP, a unique selling proposition, having some kind of differentiator.
It really is the key.
And we talked about this a week or two ago. We said, there was a question where I said, you really have to find a way to connect with people.
Yeah, an emotional connection.
And have a good story, have a reason for people to be a fan of whatever it is you're doing.
Yep.
You know, something. It has to be something. I was just at a little gas station earlier today, and I just happened to look on the menu and I saw something that was really interesting to me. Have you ever heard of honey butter shrimp?
I mean, I've heard of honey butter things, but not shrimp. Yeah.
Honey butter shrimp, right? So I tried it, you know, and it was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And it's just little things like that kind of catch your eye, you know? So you look around if you're in a saturated market and you say, okay, what can I do that my competitors are not doing?
Yeah. What can you do a little bit different?
A little bit different, a little bit better, right? And that doesn't mean supplicating yourself. It doesn't mean bending over, you know, and taking it in a way that's harmful to you and you don't feel good at the end of the day. It means like being a little creative, you know? Can you add a little value to someone's day?
Yeah.
And that could be anything. We could say, you know, you could be a guy that mows lawns.
Yeah.
And you just find a way to be a little bit better somehow.
Yeah. And you know, that's a good point on the lawn mowing. Cause I mean, honestly, you're just getting your grass cut, but if you can do something to go a little bit above and beyond, add a little bit of value add, that's how you really impress the customer. And then the customer tells a bunch of people about you. And so my business, you know, we just file taxes is our main kind of business. We're expanding now into other markets, but for many years I just did taxes and bookkeeping. Just on the street here in Bethany, there's 6 other CPAs, you know, down the street. There's tons of people in the area who do taxes just like me. So it's hard to differentiate except for the customer experience. And so my customer experience is I try to make sure everybody has my direct contact information. When I do their taxes, I try to sit down and explain them a little more thoroughly, kind of walk through what you're doing good in your business, what you're doing bad in your business, how you can improve. And so adding that little extra 15 or 20 minutes with a client has made all the difference in the world for my business.
That's how you keep your customers. But how you get your customers, in my opinion, partly is because your signage is better.
Really? You think so?
There. Yeah, I told you that. I drove by, you know, probably dozens of times before I came in.
Yeah.
But every time I drove by, I read what's on your window.
Yeah.
You know, and it made me think about it just for a brief moment. It made me think, you know what, I need to go get some help with my taxes. I'm behind. I know that I haven't, you know, I'm not up to date on the bookkeeping and all this. And it just induced that little moment of realization, hey, I really need to do something. Tiny bit of guilt there, you know, a tiny bit of fear.
Yeah.
I've said this a million times on this thing, but I've said, you know, when I walked in, I said, hey, can you keep me out of jail? Because I had a legitimate fear.
I remember.
Which turned out to not be, you know, anywhere close to as dire as it seems, but...
Well, that's just, you know, anxiety, catastrophizing. It's always worse in your head.
Absolutely. But I don't know that because I'm ignorant of this, right?
Yeah.
But none of the other CPAs on the street have any kind of information for passerby that even makes them think about it, other than the fact that it just says CPA in small letters on their thing.
Well, that's true. Yeah, we do have a little bit more signage, and we say unfiled taxes or bookkeeping and payrolls all on our door.
And it's just that little nudge right there, you know. And in my case, it took dozens of times. Somebody else, it might take one time, but it's there.
Well, shout out to the guy who designed all that for me.
And of course, the way you go about it, the personalization, that is your unique selling proposition. That is the thing that I believe makes you different than any of the other accountants that I've dealt with. And they've been nice.
Yeah.
They've just not been personable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I'm not even the best accountant probably on the block, but I am probably one of the more personable, and I like to talk through what is happening a little bit more thoroughly than some.
Well,
of my
I'm not in
competitors.
jail. And I'm not afraid of going to jail. So in my opinion, you're the best accountant I've ever had.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
And also, by the way, I would like to mention that one of the accountants I had, right, managed to make a mistake that cost me an extra like $6,000 at the IRS. You know,
Yeah.
the IRS let me know that. And yeah, I had to pay it off. So
Yeah. It's unfortunate that the taxpayer suffers from accountants' mistakes, but that's the world we live in.
yeah.
What else we got going on?
How do you manage time better as a business owner? There's never enough hours in the day.
Oh yeah. Do you have enough hours in your day to do stuff?
No.
Yeah, that's a constant problem. That's just going to be an overwhelming thing that there's no real easy solution for it. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just, not only that, I find myself sometimes shutting down because of all of the burden sometimes, and then there's even less hours because
you have so much to do that you just go down and take
I zone out,
Yeah,
right?
take a nap.
Like it's crazy.
So there are literally hundreds of books that can answer that question better than me on time management and tackling, making your day more efficient. You just have to find kind of what works for you. So I have a bunch of clients who insist on being up at 4 a.m., going to the gym, getting all of their work done before noon, and like having the rest of the day for big picture stuff. And that works for them. I am not a 4 a.m. kind of guy. I am a little bit old school. I have notes, like legal pads with just my to-do list, my notes, everything. And I get a little dopamine hit every time I scratch it off. So that's kind of how I organize my day. I have another client who he has so much going on in his life that he just does 3 to 5 things a day. He puts a list of 5 things and he just tries to tackle each one, all of them each day. And that's how he manages his time. And so you just have to find kind of what works for you. It's a trial and error, a hit and miss thing, but it's always a problem.
I make a list and then forget where I put the list.
Yeah, there you go.
No,
so
but
that doesn't work for you.
But honestly, what I have found works for me is literally hiring for my weaknesses. That's another thing that you've helped me with. I was about
to get to, yeah.
Yeah, it's hiring an assistant has helped out a lot. And I was one of those people who thought 2 things. I thought, number one, no one can do it as good as me if I ever get around to doing it.
Right.
And number 2, I can't afford an assistant.
Well, that raises a good question on the getting it done. Do you think it's better to just have stuff done, even if it's not quite as good as you wanted it, or having it undone and just waiting for you?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes, good enough is okay. And you just have to, that's one of the things I've had to learn to live with.
Which is a struggle for you.
Right. And sometimes, depending on what the actual task is, right, being undone would be better than being half-assed.
Yeah. Well, nothing should ever be half-assed.
I shouldn't say half-assed either, but yeah. let me just say that sometimes when things are not done in just the right way, it carries consequences, that spill over.
Right.
That have to be, then you have to go back and you have to undo things.
Right.
So the balance there is that if you're the type of person that wants to delegate things, you have to get at least clarity in your mind of how to explain it.
Yep, that's a good point.
And that's what will help. But you have to be able to know that once you've explained it, you can let it go and give somebody the autonomy to go do it.
Yeah. So I guess to kind of answer the question, it was, there are a bunch of resources out there, but you have to find an effective time management strategy for you. And then hiring for your weaknesses is really the big one. And you don't have to necessarily hire a full-time employee. Like when we first started, I just worked kind of part-time as a contractor for you, and I just helped with the bookkeeping. And that's what Turtlesmith does. We just try to take off a little bit of the extra back-end office and effort and help you with payroll, help you with taxes, that kind of stuff. So you can find a lot of bookkeeping and accounting services out there that can help you with that little stuff. You can find some people to just kind of help you with your budgeting and your monthly management and things like that. And you can just delegate little pieces of your day to subcontractors or small services. You don't necessarily have to jump in and hire a full-time person just to start running with you if you can't afford it or you don't need it yet.
Yeah. And another thing is to just be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that they don't have enough time during the day. And if they really are honest with themselves and they sit down and block out time to do things, they find that a lot of the stuff that they need to do just doesn't take that long at all.
That's true. And also, how often are you distracted and how often are you actually doing something?
Right. And that's what happens with me sometimes is I'll get distracted a lot. Like I'll be wanting to do something and then people will come up and want to talk to me and they'll want something from me.
Right.
And instead of having the discipline to say to them, I don't have time for you right now, and not wanting to be rude. I want to be like, okay, let's do that right now.
Yeah.
I've taken to doing this. I did this last night. A customer came up, or a potential customer, she came up to me and she said, "Hey, I've got one of your cases. It was given to me. I would like to personalize it." And I said to her, we can do that, but I have to get off my butt and get my machines up and running again to the one that I want to be able to do that. So I told her, I said, what I want you to do is I want you to come to my shop, sit down with me so we can do the design you want, and that will give me the incentive to get the machines running.
No.
And so to that end, I told Chandler this morning, I said, I need you to do this and this and this to make sure that the machine's running, so that when I go in and get started on designing and relearn how to use this machine, because I haven't done it in like 5 years, but it works. Now I've got an incentive to go ahead and get that part of the business back up and going.
There you go.
But I've learned that about myself, that I need the person to come and stand there with me so that I can just focus on that thing that they need and get it done right that moment.
Well, that's a little bit of less time management, more just you need the motivation.
Right.
You need the immediacy
but
to
it's
get
a
it done.
strategy that I've developed for myself, right?
That's fair.
Now, that's not the same as someone coming and interrupting me when it like if I was doing that.
Get a lot of interruptions.
Let's say this customer came over and she's sitting there and we designed the thing and everything and all that, right? If at that moment someone else were to come in and try to take some of my time, I would say to them, I don't have time for you right now. Go get with Chandler and make a time that we can get together and take care of your issue.
All right. Yeah, you got to protect your time a little bit.
So that's what I would say. Yes, protect your time is a good way to say it.
What's the next one?
What beliefs did you guys have early on that turned out to be the most expensive illusion?
I don't know. Go ahead.
Honestly, the one is for me was build it and they will come.
That's a very common
your
one.
product speaks for itself.
Yeah, that's very common.
Right. I cannot stand to hear anybody say that anymore. When I compare my case to someone else's case, they say, "Oh, don't be that guy that compares the case. Let the product speak for itself."
Yep.
No products speak for themselves. People don't beat a path to your door. Mm-hmm. You're not selling hot buttered corn on a cold winter day.
Right.
You got to get out there in a crowded field and build your own little ladder and get your head above the crowd and elbow people out of the way. And if you've got something that's really worthwhile, people will eventually figure it out, if you keep pushing it, and you have to be honest about it, right? So if you've got crap, you're not going to be able to put whipped cream on it and call it chocolate ice cream for very long.
Right.
But if you've got something good, you are going to have to compete with a lot of people who are selling shit with whipped cream on it.
Right.
And so, no, the product does not speak for itself. That's the one that for me was the biggest illusion that I suffered from. I, at the beginning, thought if I just build a great case, everyone will realize it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've got two, I think. The first one is make sure you have a contract. Don't take people for their word. When I first started, I grew up, in the oil field in Western Kansas. That's what my family did for a living. And, it's a very small community of investors and people who drill oil wells. And so almost everything was done on a handshake or a yes or, just a phone call. Because in that industry, if you screw somebody over, word gets around and you're just out. So everybody really has an incentive to keep honest. When I started my first company here and I was dealing with clients and stuff like that, I didn't always get an engagement letter. I didn't always get a contract. I didn't always get a signature. And I got stiffed a lot coming up. About a handful of times. One I talk about sometimes is I've worked for like 3 weeks on a client and he stiffed me, and that was literally my money for the month. Like my lights got turned off. I didn't have food. Like it was a bad experience for me. So always get a contract. Don't just take people at their word. Make sure it's written down or, pinned in some way.
I totally agree with you. We just had this conversation the other day about I will never buy another building without getting an inspection.
Yeah, just don't take people at their
For
word.
$2,000, I could have saved $20,000
Yeah.
in repairs that I've put into this building.
Yeah. And my next one kind of goes back to the time management, that it is okay, even early on, to say no to certain clients or say no to certain deals. I was really all about chasing down everything, chasing down every dollar, earning money, even if it was too low of a pay for me. I needed the money. So it was just always a yes. I was doing all kinds of stuff. I worked for a guy for like, $15 an hour just doing his payroll or something like that. This was after I'd already had 10 or 15 years in the business, but I was just trying to get as much business and as much money as I could through the door. And I never said no. And it caused me a lot of stress and headache. And I ended up with working for people who, in my gut, I probably shouldn't have. So it's okay to say no. It's okay to protect your time. It's okay to disappoint some people in order to just do what needs to be done.
Here's another one. This one's a big one. This is one that we harp on a lot at Turtlesmith. Don't think that you can just start, a business.
Yeah.
Don't think that you can just jump in and it will all magically work out.
Yeah. Definitely. You want to have the planning in place. You want to have a good business plan, a good head on your shoulders, and know what you're doing.
Yeah, because that's one thing that caused me a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm.
I just started, and being ignorant of all that and not planning cost me a lot of money.
And it doesn't take that much time or effort to make a good plan. Like, just check out turtlesmith.com. We've got a whole guide on how to build a business plan. There's tons of resources out there. But just spend a little bit of time planning out, get your cash flow down, your monthly cash burn, how you're going to do marketing, how you're going to do sales, how the processes are going to work. Just taking a little bit of time at the beginning to kind of get your ducks in a row will save you so many headaches.
100%. Impulsivity has cost me so much.
Yeah. Any other ones, or is that it for today?
That's it for today.
Yeah. Okay.
Before we get out of here, we did just yesterday, we released our video on YouTube, a reaction video when we were talking about sporting events and what they do for local economies.
Yeah.
I actually found something, I ran across something earlier that was pretty interesting, and it came up during that, so I figured why not just say it on the live. 10 once thriving Olympic stadiums that now lay abandoned.
Oh, is Atlanta one?
Nope.
Oh.
Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Sochi, Russia.
These are all recent ones.
Mm-hmm. Beijing, China. Turin, Italy. Athens, Greece. Sarajevo, Bosnia. Moscow, and Montreal, Canada. All of those facilities were built specifically for the Olympics, and now they lay there abandoned.
Yeah, I feel like they should just have sports in the same spot, like we could do it all over the world, but let's have the bobsled in Montreal, and let's have the skiing in Italy. And then, you can just do it all over the country. You don't have to have it all combined into one thing that bankrupts a location.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Even look at the ones that we get the only event outside of LA here for 2028.
Yeah, they should have done them all over the country.
That's a facility that was already built, and it will continue to be used after the Olympics.
Right. See, they should spread it out a little bit. One country, in the United States, not to prop up the United States, but we're pretty big and we have a robust economy. Some of these countries are a little bit smaller, and it takes a lot of their resources to run these Olympics. It can bankrupt whole countries. Like
Sarajevo, what that's relatively small country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm looking at some of the pictures of them too, and it's just
like ghost towns.
Yeah, they're just ghost towns. It's just like you could tell that there was something great there once that has never been there again.
Yeah, that's another thing with the planning. They should have the Olympics actually should make cities have a plan for how it's going to be used. That's kind of a black eye on the Olympics to have Olympic stadiums in disrepair and disuse.
Just in general, that stage of planning for not only the Olympics, but for just businesses in general is always neglected. The exit strategy. It's the least talked about and the least planned for, and it's terrible. We did a whole podcast on exit planning, succession planning, strategy planning. You have got to have your ducks in a row for when you're leaving a company or closing it down or whatever. And I think that's where our government fails a lot, and the Olympics are failing a lot, and all these kind of huge organizations, they get excited about the beginning, they get excited about the marketing, they might even put on an awesome event, but they don't have a good exit plan.
It's like
they
I just said.
leave it and abandon it.
It's like I just said, like me, I got into business because I had an idea. I want to make a case. I went out and bought a bunch of stuff.
Right.
And 30 years later, I'm still doing cases, but I went through a good 15 years of real pain, failed partnerships, lots of heartache, lots of arguments, lots of near bankruptcy. And it didn't have to be that way.
No, it did not.
And now, as I'm, getting older and everything, and we're getting to a point where we want to start thinking about slowing down a little bit, now we need to start thinking about a graceful exit.
Right. And how that works.
Yeah.
So, exit planning is just so neglected. And it always sticks in my craw when companies are like, I want to sell my business. And I'm like, who are you selling it? It's not sellable. Like, you can't sell it. Like, stop. Or they have way high expectations of the price or the cost. Anyway, sorry, that's just a little pet peeve of mine. We always fuck up the end game. Everybody always fucks up the end. Like we get the beginning, we put on a great event, and then all these Olympic stadiums and FIFA World Cup stuff that happens, huge events that happens, they always fuck up the end. It's horrible. Leaves places just in ruins. Like that, what was that, Fire Festival or whatever, destroyed that whole island. And
they're coming back with another one.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Is it, who was the guy, Ja Rule?
This one's going to be the Phoenix Festival.
Ja Rule won't be, but the other guy.
He was the one who did the first one, though.
They're going to call it the Phoenix Festival, aren't they?
He was brought in, but it was Billy.
If they don't call it the Phoenix Festival,
they got to call it the Phoenix Festival.
Why go? All right.
Maybe we can do the Phoenix Festival in Beijing.
There you go. All right. Well, I think that's the end. Turtlesmith.com. Check us out at TurtlesmithOK at all our socials. And then just hit us up if you have questions, business stuff. This is part of our consulting. This is what we do. Most of my business consulting is just answering questions, and that's what we want to do here.
I wanted to mention something else that we rarely mention on this podcast is we also have the Sense of Direction podcast.
Oh, yeah.
I mentioned that to a guy last night. Guy's 37 years old. And he was complaining a little bit about how he's, perpetually broke. And I said, hey, why don't you go check out our Sense of Direction, because we have a great podcast to teach younger people how to financially plan. And if you're 37, you start now.
Yeah. It's never too late. Well,
it's never too late.
But
get
started as quick as you can.
Get started as quick as you can, but he's in a good position, and he was like, well, I don't know what to do. I build carports, and everything. I said, okay, well, you know what? What you need to do is figure out how to sell jobs at night when you're asleep. And I told him about, doing some videos and, some dude like me, right? We'll be up at like 2 a.m. in the morning, kind of doom scrolling, and come across cool carport video and be like,
hey, I need one.
I trust that guy. I'm gonna send him a message real quick, and then boom, in the morning he's got a lead.
Well, the Sense of Direction is all about financial literacy and how to kind of handle your budgets. I suggest you start with the budgeting episode, but there's a lot of great information there. Good reference. I'm glad we mentioned that.
So yeah, I just thought about that just now and said, let's do it. So anyway, there we go. Sorry.
All right. Well, we're always on Thursdays, 4:30. Come ask us questions, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Bye, everybody.
I'm Scott Hess, tax and business consultant.
I'm John Barton, small business owner. Remember the tortoise and the hare? Slow and steady wins the race.
We started Turtlesmith to help people start small businesses, providing information and resources to small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Build a solid foundation and